Hi, welcome to the Tuesday Afternoon Podcast with Ben and Wrenn. In a time when we're learning to lean more on each other, we are doing this because we want to explore ways to live out our faith every day, even on a beautifully ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Hi, welcome to the Tuesday Afternoon Podcast with Ben and Wrenn. I'm Wrenn.
And hello, I'm Ben.
We are so glad that you have joined us today, and we have a guest with us this Tuesday afternoon.
That's right.
We have Pastor Bob Miller from Sparta United Methodist Church is joining us for our discussion. We're really happy that you're here with us today.
Well, I'm very happy to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks. So today we're going to talk about a couple of different things. But first, what is making us feel happy this week? Tell me, what are you thinking about this week?
Well, this week is St. Patrick's Day week.
Mm-hmm.
We're recording the day before St. Patrick's Day, and so it's on Wednesday, which is a really busy day for us because of the Grace Kitchen community meal that we're a part of, which is on Wednesday. So we made our traditional St. Patrick's Day meal on Sunday. I think every year of her life, my wife Kyla has had corned beef and cabbage and potatoes, and it has just become a family favorite. We make it once a year, and we were just that's a happy moment thinking about that meal. It's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I am married to an Irishman, and his mom had 7 kids, and every year on St. Patrick's Day she would get up at 5:30 to get her corned beef going, and that is one of my fondest memories of her. Is just as many family members as were around would come, and we would just eat all afternoon. So good. Yeah, delicious.
And we couldn't do corned beef, but we've got a really cool beef meal for beef and cabbage, roast beef and cabbage meal for tomorrow. That
looking forward to that.
Be serving to the community, so that's exciting.
That is very
exciting.
Happy
thing.
Yeah, and cake with green icing, I think
so.
What I've heard.
Yeah, the cake's got baked today, so.
Yay, awesome. Well, I am thinking about what's making me happy this past week. I got to go on a couple of days away with my husband to the beach in the middle of the work week. I felt like a grown-up. And it was just really nice, to have that time, spend that time in the car and have time for conversation and, beautiful weather and walks on the beach and that kind of thing. It's just it was really, really a great time to get away, and we enjoyed it very much. So that's my happiness for the week.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It was good.
Cool. Well, we are.
So do I get to?
Oh yeah.
Do I get to tell any happiness? You're leaving me out of this.
Bob, what's making you happy?
Sorry, we're not used to hosting.
Well, this past Friday I got to work out in my new yard all day.
Nice.
So that was just so wonderful. The weather was nice, and my friend Alan came over and helped me and trimmed bushes and hauled limbs and spent Saturday with my knee under ice. And but yeah, it made me really happy. And then Sunday was able to get back out and do a little bit more. So really felt good in my new home, my new yard.
Putting down roots.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Very happy time.
Oh, that's great.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I know when we saw that yard early on in the process, there was a lot of dreaming about what could happen.
You should say it now.
Yeah, I should.
You would be shocked.
That's great.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Sunday, because part of what we want to talk about today is Sunday was the first in-person service that Sparta United Methodist Church has had, Bob, since almost a year ago.
A year.
Right? And we started, Wrenn and I started this podcast in the middle of the pandemic in the summer. Wrenn, I remember you came over with the idea to our house and talked to Kyle and I about it, and it just felt like we really needed a bright spot of happiness in our weeks, and we wanted to offer that to others. And now we find ourselves kind of coming, hopefully, maybe to the other end of the tunnel. Maybe we're starting to get on the other side of this, and so I thought it would be really cool, and not just me, we all thought it'd be really interesting to talk about what that experience was like, being back in church in person on Sunday, and then that's going to tie into our conversation about kindness this week that we had scheduled. So, Wrenn, what was it like for you to be back in church?
Okay, so this past Sunday, as you just said, first time we came to in-person church in a year. And I didn't even think about the fact that I really hadn't been in the sanctuary at all. And we do Grace Kitchen in this building, but it's on the other end, and I don't come up here for anything really. And so, we're dressed, we're ready, we're in the car, everything's good. And get here, and John and I walked in, and there was someone taking your temperature as you came in the front door of the church, which I get. I work at the school system. I see that as part of our daily lives everywhere. But for whatever reason, when I came into church, I just wasn't expecting that to happen. And it really threw me. And then we had to be ushered to a specific seat in the sanctuary. And of course, we had to wear our masks, and there was no singing and no hymnals or Bibles in front of you in the little pew racks there. And I guess I should have been more mentally prepared for those things, but I just wasn't. And so John and I sat there and waited for the service to start, and I just felt like I got more and more anxious. And he leaned over and said, why don't you just think about the river, think about being at the river and watch the water go. And that helped me a lot. And once the service started, I started to feel a little less anxious. But I noticed on the walls that there were places where the plaster had been repaired from the earthquake that we experienced in August. And that's not something I had anywhere near my mind at the moment. And so that kind of threw me. And I just felt, I didn't feel social. I didn't feel like I wanted to talk to anyone or see anyone. It was very strange. But I noticed that, Bob, once you started to give your message, I began to feel more comfortable and less anxious, and it continued to dissipate until the end of the service. I felt really okay. But when I look back on it, I felt like it was something we needed to talk about because I didn't see that coming. And I'm wondering if there are a lot of other people out there that are just starting to make baby steps back out into the world, and how that's really going to feel. And will they be surprised like I was to feel certain ways they might not be expecting?
I think that's very important, Wrenn. And I had not thought about that from your perspective. And I suppose a lot of people are going to be a little bit shocked as they come back, and everything's different, and it's just been so long. And I think it's a relearning process.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad that's a good conversation, 'cause I think people need to hear that, and maybe others can be a little more open and prepared for when they come in, how things are going to be and how they're going to feel.
Yeah.
Bob, I'm wondering, you've been preaching at a camera lens for the last year. How did Sunday feel for you?
Well, I had a lot of anxiety too. But my anxiety was more over how are people going to handle having the temperature checked and being seated, and just the difference. But I tell you, this past year for me, Ben and Wrenn, has been just a tough year. Trying to carry on worship services, trying to do ministry, and not having people around. And I'm very much a people person. I need people. Right. So this last year has been a struggle. But boy, when I stood up Sunday, though, and looked out and saw all my friends, not all my friends, but all the people that were there are my friends, and I consider my family, it was energizing. It was just like, oh, thank you, God. I feel alive here.
Yeah.
So it was a very positive, powerful thing for me. Once again, when I looked up and I could see there's John and Wrenn where they always sit, and here's, it just felt really, really good.
Yeah. It's interesting, the different perspectives. I can only imagine what that must have been like in your position, in your vocation, to stand up and do a recorded service with no people there for the last year.
Very hard.
Yeah.
And I like to talk to people.
Sure.
It was preaching to
to a camera
empty
lens.
room.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful we're taking these baby steps, and we are getting back. But I think we do need to hear what Wrenn has shared with us. And not everybody's going to come in and have that real positive, feel-good experience.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
And I think about folks that are living alone, that are maybe compromised, immunocompromised, or in other ways that haven't really been out much at all. Yeah. Maybe they've been to doctor's appointments or to the grocery store, but how this is going to be for them when they start getting back out. I feel like it's going to be a physically as well as mentally kind of just making yourself get out of the car in the parking lot and walk into the building. I just think that it's going to be a little harder for some people than we might have thought. Yeah. I certainly hadn't thought about it that way until it happened.
Yeah, I seriously doubt any of us have until it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a real opportunity for us to practice love and kindness for each other as well as we enter into different social engagements over the next few months, whether it's at church or at Food Lion or wherever you find yourself. The person you're talking to, you may be really eager to get back out there and get things back to quote unquote normal, but the person you're talking to might be expending a lot of energy just to be present in that moment. And I think, we've all experienced a lot of changing of social norms over the last year, almost I feel like we're going to be feeling a little bit of whiplash here because we've gone from a radical shift towards being mostly at home, and now we're going to start shifting into another new way of living that's going to be closer to normal, but still not quite. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to offer each other grace in those moments.
Yeah, and I think I'm really thankful. I was anxious about how people were going to handle everything Sunday, but I think people wearing their mask Sunday was an act of kindness for their neighbor. Because some people coming in were, a little concerned about, possibly spreading the virus or whatever. So I thought everybody did very well Sunday, and it's good for me to think of that as an act of kindness.
Yeah. And speaking, we've been talking about the fruit of the Spirit here for the last few weeks, and kind of going in order and talking about a different one each week. And this week we're talking about kindness, since you brought that up, Bob. And I didn't get to hear the end of your sermon because Kyla was there in person. She helped sing. So that I was at home with the kids, and I got to hear the first part, but the kids needed my attention. Let's just say it that way. Towards the end. So I missed the challenge that you gave at the end of your sermon, but Wrenn thought that had a really profound connection to this idea of the Spirit growing kindness within us. So Wrenn, would you mind talking about that for a second?
Yeah. At the close of your sermon, you talked about showing kindness to others by literally looking at each person you come in contact with every day, whether it is the cashier at the grocery store or, the person sitting across from you at a table or just anyone, the mailman, showing them true kindness as much as you can, as often as you can, because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
And you talked about the bracelets.
Yeah, the WWJD bracelets, yeah.
Oh, that's a throwback.
It is, it is a throwback. But, and it was kind of a kitschy little phase, but it's truly a good thing to remember.
I think what most of you younger people remember is it was a little phase, but that thing actually started in the 1950s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, a Presbyterian pastor challenged. He took it upon himself that he was going to be as good and as kind to everybody he encountered as he possibly could. And in 1 week's time, he felt like his life had gotten so much better. So then he challenged his church people to do the same thing. Take 1 week. Every person you encounter, be as good to them as you can, be as kind, and, it changed the church, and it grew. And then he said in time, it started to change the town. So it's an old movement. Most of y'all remember the little bracelets at the end, but yeah, he's the guy that came up with the phrase, "What would Jesus do?" And he said, consider that with every person you encounter.
Yeah. That is so cool. And it does, if you think about it consciously, obviously you're more likely to act on it. And then maybe after a while it'll come more naturally, and then it grows and ripples out. And wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my experience growing up in the church was that kindness was kind of seen as a minor aspect of Christian living, something that you shouldn't make a big deal about. I would say it was almost really they were talking more about niceness than they were being kind. And over the years, I've come to feel that kindness is probably one of the most major aspects. If the goal is not following a religion, but if the goal is following in the footsteps of Jesus, then kindness is not a minor thing; it's a major thing.
Yeah.
I would say kindness is almost just love in action. And what else?
Yeah.
What else are we to do
Right.
following Jesus than put our love into action?
Mm-hmm.
And how hard is it to put your love into action? It's really not that hard.
No, it isn't.
It's easy to be kind to people if you want to, and you try and or are conscious of that effort.
Yeah.
Easy if you're willing to put others first.
If you got to be willing to put others first,
And that's the leap.
But
I think.
I think Jesus had something to say about putting
That's
other
right.
people first.
That's right. And if you do that, you love your neighbor, you put others first, then you are then also loving him.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like we've talked about many times, it just circles back around and around. And yeah. And when you say love in action, maybe there are folks that would say, well, what does that mean? How do I do that? But all it really means is showing kindness, putting yourself ahead, putting the other person ahead of you. And it doesn't have to be rocket science, and it doesn't have to be anything big. Holding a door open, sharing a smile, truly asking, how are you today? And wanting to hear how that person really is, other than, good, how are you?
One of my professors in seminary used to make a real big deal out of people asking, how are you, as they're flying past.
Yep.
He'd make a real big deal out of that, and impressed upon me, you don't ask somebody how you're doing unless you stop and look them in the eyes and ask. And they'd be willing to pause and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the ways that I think kindness is best shown is by truly listening to someone. And like you said, if you're just passing on a busy street, how are you? Good, how are you?
Yeah.
If you stop and look each other in the eye, it changes the whole encounter.
Yeah.
And it can change the person's day or life even,
Yeah.
you know? Someone cared enough to stop and really listen to how I'm
And
feeling.
that person might really need somebody to
Yeah.
listen that day.
Yeah. And it might be so meaningful to them that happened that they want to do that for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it grows.
Yeah, I think kindness is contagious.
Yeah. You know, I'm sitting here, there's 4 of us in this room, the 3 of us, and then our amazing engineer, producer, all around, does everything but what we do here to make this podcast happen, Jonah. And, you know, if thinking about putting others first, if we all focus on putting each other first, then you don't have to worry about taking care of ourselves.
No.
That's right.
We all have each other in mind. And really, that drive to put yourself first is really rooted in fear, which is the opposite of love.
Yeah, I think that's what Jesus was getting at when he said, when Peter said, we've forsaken all, we've left our homes, our families, our jobs for you. And Jesus said, you'll gain more in the world. I think that's what he's talking about.
Sounds like the kingdom of God, doesn't it?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
we're all looking out for each other and instead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kindness is the key.
Kindness is very important.
Yeah. Great discussion.
Yeah.
Let's go out there and show some kindness, make some ripples in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, happy songs and quotes.
Sure. I've got a kindness
got?
quote.
Awesome.
As I've just kind of been, I've enjoyed, I knew this topic was coming up, and I've enjoyed just meditating and kind of contemplatively thinking about kindness.
Yes.
And it's just kind of like seeped into my life.
Oh, that's good.
It's been a good thing. So I've been looking up quotes on kindness. I found one I liked. Nothing can make our life or the lives of other people more beautiful than perpetual kindness. That's by Leo Tolstoy.
That is very good. I like that.
How about you, Wrenn?
So I, too, chose a kindness-related quote, and mine is, kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. And that is Mother Teresa. She was a pretty cool gal, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Bob? Did you? Don't feel obligated, but...
I don't have a kindness quote. I didn't know this morning I was going to be doing this, but but I do. Last night I was looking through some of my stuff, as I'm getting my house set up, and I came across a card that Sam and Margot sent me when Sadie died.
Oh, wow.
And it just warmed my heart, that their kindness, their caring, knowing what I was feeling then.
Yeah.
It's keepsake.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And just a simple, it's not hard.
No. It's simple as a card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's very meaningful. Happy songs.
So, since I don't remember what it was, but since we recorded our last episode, we took a little short road trip somewhere, and the kids were in their own little world in the back seat. But Kyle and I just had a blast going through 90s and early 2000s songs from our high school and college days, and came across this one song I'd kind of forgotten about, but it just makes us so happy. It's Cake. Did you ever listen to Cake?
I don't know. I've heard of Cake.
They don't really have a musical genre. They're kind of wild, but their song "The Distance"
The Distance
by Cake.
Okay.
Just put a smile on your face.
Okay. I'm going to listen to that in the car. The Distance by Cake. And my happy song for the day is Marrakesh Express by Crosby, Stills and Nash. And it's just it's a delightful song, and it kind of makes you tap your feet and skip along. So I hope you enjoy that.
Bob, do you have a song that makes you happy?
Lots of
many,
songs.
many.
Many. No, I don't. Nothing's come to my mind right now.
That's all right.
It's all right. Well, we're just so glad that you were able to join us on short notice today and be a part of this discussion that I think has been truly meaningful and hopefully will be helpful to some folks out there that are thinking about what it's going to be like to sort of get your feet back wet in this world, so to speak. So,
Well, thank you all for listening and joining us today. And we will be back here next week with another episode of the Tuesday Afternoon Podcast. And may you go into your week full of courage to listen for the Spirit of God leading you and how you can show kindness and love to others. We'll see you next week.